Good afternoon and welcome to Supporting Families and Needing Strong Homeschool Partnerships in a Pandemic Era, a professional learning session of ELRISE. My name is Margarita Gonzalez Amador, Project Administrator for ELRISE. Thank you for joining us in this warm California afternoon. We know your time is valuable and we hope that you find this webinar informative and worthwhile your work. The California English Learner Roadmap, adopted unanimously by the California State Board of Education in July 2017. As new English learner policy for California, superseding Proposition 227, which has been the state's English learner policy for 20 years. Aspirational and comprehensive, the EL roadmap consists of 4 principles that are to guide local programs, policies, instruction, and planning for English learners throughout California. It calls upon every educator, school, and district in the state towards enacting assets-oriented and needs-responsive schools, and it calls upon our systems to provide the conditions to make such education possible. These principles are research-based and guide us to best practices, and are an important foundation for us as we work to strengthen English learner education. Even now, as we face the challenges of how best to meet the needs of our English learners during this pandemic and through distance learning. If you need more information about the roadmap, there are links in the chat to the roadmap policy itself and to the infographic you can download, and we encourage you to check out the CDE website for additional materials. As part of the state's support for enacting the English Learner Roadmap, the legislature and California Department of Education funded 2 educator workforce investment grants, of which ELRISE is one. The goals of the grant are listed on the slide, and today we are focusing on 2. A support development of shared vision and priorities for local planning and developing local policies and LEA systems focused on English learner needs. Over the course of the next 3 years, ELRISE, working in partnership with your county offices of education, will be providing many opportunities and resources for professional learning, such as webinars, institutes, workshops, strands for multiple roles, such as teachers, administrators, our families, counselors, etc., on various topics related to implementing the EL roadmap, such as building strong dual language programs, meeting the needs of long-term English learners, etc., all meant to support you in implementing the California English Learner Roadmap. Today's webinar brings to full circle our Fall Administrator Series, which was a response to the immediate needs of school leaders of reopening schools in the new school year with a focus on English learners in distance learning. Our first webinar focused on the continuity of learning and attendance plan with English learners at the heart. And our second webinar topic was reopening school districts embracing our English learners. Today's webinar will focus on how we are supporting our families and students in this time of remote learning, how are schools being assets-oriented and responsive. What systems do school districts have in place to support families to create strong homeschool connections? We will briefly review research and experience-based guidance that describe effective components of homeschool partnerships, hear from 2 parent leaders on their perspective of what they need from our school leaders, and 2 school districts will share how they are responding to needing strong homeschool partnerships in this pandemic era. Family and school partnerships are always an important element of effective schooling for students and consistently identified in the research on effective schooling for English learners and language minority students. It is called out specifically in the first and foundational principle of the California English Learner Roadmap policy, assets-oriented and needs-responsive schools. In the last 4 to 6 months, there has been quite an amount of guidance that has come up from the field, researchers, advocacy groups, etc., about what is important in addressing and building on homeschool connections, including families of English learners in context of the pandemic. There is a set of consistent guidance that threads across all of them that we need to keep in mind as we think about how we are approaching homeschool partnerships. And some of these key ideas are listed. For example, strong stakeholder engagement, support for families as partners, emphasizing relationships and community building, personalizing, ensuring access to equipment, materials, learning supports, meeting social, emotional, and basic needs of our families and our students, affirming and supporting development of the home language. Furthermore, there are specific examples. PIQE, Parent Institute for Quality Education, conducted a parent survey across the state of 1,400 parents. The results were posted in this last spring. This slide speaks to communication between schools and families. The question is, has your child's school or teacher communicated information regarding online distance classes or distance learning? As you can see, 93% said yes. And of the 93%, the follow-up question was, did you understand the instructions? Of which 31% said no. What does that say about our communication with parents? What lessons did we learn? How are we approaching it now differently? This slide asks the question, if your child is an English learner, is he or she receiving the support needed? As you can see, almost half said no. All families right now are concerned about educational loss during remote learning. But for English learner families, this concern is greater, especially when many do not have the language to voice their concerns or are fearful to do so. What has been the approach and response now from district school site leaders? As a follow-up, PIQE will be conducting another community needs assessment in October. The questions will be similar to the survey conducted in May, with additional questions which will gauge transition to school, including time spent with teachers, homework, and stress. So we're looking forward to that survey results. This last slide, is from the American Community Survey, which shows 3 states with the largest population of students without adequate connection: Texas, California, and Florida. These 3 states have large number of English learners. California is the 2nd state on the list. In addition to the research, there are lessons that we learned and gaps identified. Californians Together did an analysis of the COVID-19 reports for degree to which they address English learner needs. Sample included 80 school districts that together serve 45% of California English learners across 25 counties, and they found these gaps. Address the digital divide, proactively support family collaboration, and focus on the social emotional needs of our families and students. So there are 2 things that are supporting the need to address homeschool partnerships: the gaps that are found in the reports and what research is telling us is important. Before we introduce our first presenters, we wanted to share a resource tool with you. At all of our fall administrator and teacher webinars, we have developed reflection tools and resources that support you in implementing the principles of the EL roadmap. The following chart summarizes key elements for partnering with, engaging, and supporting EL families with specific implications and examples for the site and district administrators. Please take 1 minute to preview the tool and the key elements as you refer to it throughout the presentation today. You can download from the chat so that you can refer to it and write your notes. Also, as we continue with our presentation, any questions that may come up that you might have, please write those on the chat. So right now, please take 1 minute, 60 seconds to review the reflection tool on family engagement and support for hybrid and distance learning. We hope that you had an opportunity to look at the elements of the tool itself, and we really encourage you to look at the examples and actions for administrators, and I'm sure that you have much more to add. But please use it as we go through the presentation today as your resource and reference tool. We'll go on to the next section. We need to have a venue for reaching out to our families and parents to gather information. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from 2 parent leaders from PIQE, the Parent Institute for Quality Education. Thank you to Patricia Chavez, Director of Policy, and Gabriela Rios, Executive Director of the Modesto PIQE office, for encouraging and convincing our parents to join us today. We have asked them to join us to give us perspective on what families need from our schools and from our district leadership. They both have great insight, not only personally, but through their experience with other families and their children's own education. Rosaura Murataya is a parent liaison for a local high school in Merced County in the town of Planada. And Nitza Pagan, also from Merced County. Her children attend the Weaver School District, and prior to moving to California, she was PTA president in Georgia. So go to both of our parents. So welcome. We will have Nitza Pagan start a conversation with the following prompt. What do you wish your child's principal or administrator would ask you regarding your child's or family needs during this time? And what do you wish they would do?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So I wrote something here to have, to keep my thoughts in order. So I'm gonna read from it and try to keep it as short as possible. Like you said, my name is Nitza Pagan. I'm from the Weaver District and I'm part of PK, and I'm also a mother of 3 wonderful children. They are really spaced out. They're 24, 15, and 9. Now this has created a much more comfortable situation for me, as only the little one needs me to be with him during this pandemic. And this makes me wonder, how about the parents that have multiple children in elementary school? Now, I was blessed with my fabulous daughter. She's 15 in high school, and she's a straight A student, so she doesn't need my help anymore. But there are kids out there in high school that are still struggling. So what about them? And then because of all of this, I want to present some concerns and some ideas to help create a bridge between parents and the school. And I will start saying, what is this big chasm that exists between the schools and the parents? I was PTA president, like you said, in our last school in Georgia, and 8 years ago in my island, Puerto Rico. I'm Puerto Rican, which gives me firsthand knowledge of some of the challenges that school, parent, teacher, student face. So I have been blessed enough that I have free time to be involved in the education of my children, but some working parents only can help after a long day at work. And by the time they get home, sorry, school is closed. So that is a parent that has no one to go to. Another thing is communication. If I'm not around all the time asking what's going on, I'm none the wiser. As only recently, since the pandemic, we've been using the Parent Square platform or the other ones. In a regular session, the teacher gives my son a piece of paper and he shoves it all the way to the bottom of his backpack, and it never makes it to the backpack sometimes. And I don't find out what's going on until a week after it's happened. So there has to be another way to create a bridge between the parents and the teachers, where the parent doesn't feel fear or shame to ask what's going on. And this bridge should go to after school hours. And that bridge has to include the school personnel too, not just the teacher. I have no problem speaking my mind. So I come from a family of teachers, and I know I can just go to the office and just ask away, but not all parents like me, you know. And some have language barriers or status barriers that keeps them from and living in fear. Then that fear is not productive for anyone. My daughter's high school is using Zoom for all the classes, which I think is wonderful, but the elementary school is doing it the way they're doing it. It poses a real challenge, even for moms like me who are always involved. You can't hear me say hello. Teacher gets a call or a message from me almost every day. And she is wonderful doing so. She's always available, but even she is facing challenges being wonderful and all. Kids don't pay attention, kids don't do their work. And I know because I eavesdrop all the time. Imagine for a second that all my kids were in elementary school. Now, I know some of them on Facebook, and I see the cries and the struggles on Facebook. If you have friends, you know that we're all pulling our hairs. Even when school was going on normal, parents faced the barrier that to help their kids, and sometimes most teachers are awesome, but sometimes that parent doesn't know what's happening with their child until it's too late. And then they're running around and trying to cram information in the kid's head. That doesn't work. It is not just California, it is everywhere that this barrier exists. And as a part of the PTA, I can tell you, when parents break through that barrier and you get them to help, they are the best. And lots of wonderful wonderful positive things can be achieved. I have many ideas for when we go back to school, but we have to deal with the now, with the technophobia and the Chinese and the miscommunication that leads to misunderstanding, with the language barrier and the school is out barrier. Support for parents after hours and encouragement to step forward. It can be achieved even on this time. As an example, our principal, a few parents, and myself just put together a drive-through trunk or treat to give our kids and the family some sense of normalcy and some relief from being locked up all the time. It's not a fight between parents and the school. We adults, we already went to school. It's about them, the experience and the learning and the confidence to grow up as a better person. With all this being said, these are my ideas. After school guidance for parents who struggle with technology and language, Eureka Math here. Everybody else struggles too. Parent groups that let them express ideas that they might have, giving opinions freely to better our education system. Advocacy for the parents who have children with an IEP and sometimes don't understand all the procedures and fancy words, myself. Early detection and intervention for children who are struggling with classes, with language, with technology, etc. Accessibility to school counselor, the director, teacher, personnel after hours. I don't know, something that can be done, somebody that can be available after hours. So these struggling parents can have someone to say, I'm here to help you, even if you just got out of work at 5 p.m. I passed this to my son's teacher today and asked her what her thoughts was about this. And she has been doing help after hours actually, but it's not fair for her because she already has a family and, you know, she's taking time from her family to help out during these hard times. And I know it's hard for everybody. I can't leave my little one for 5 minutes because it's a 5-minute break he'll take. But I strongly believe that if the school gives parents a better chance, and this includes the teachers and staff, and vice versa, the parents giving the school a chance, our children will have a better chance. So that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pagan. That was very insightful. Thank you for sharing that. Now we're turning it over to Rosaura Murataya. And the same prompt, what do you wish your child's principal administrator would ask you regarding your child's or family needs during this time? And what can they be doing?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rosaura Murataya. I am a parent leader participating with PICE. I am a resident of Merced County. I have 3 children that are doing school through distant learning. One is in 8th grade, an 11th grader, and a sophomore at Fresno State. I work as a community liaison at Golden Valley High School here in Merced. And when they gave me the prompt as a parent, I have to say that when it comes to distant learning, there are many aspects to consider. I know that we are facing unprecedented times, and we all have to rise to the occasion by creating the best possible learning experience for our students. What I wish that my children's school administrator will have asked is how to address the social emotional roller coaster that my children face and are still facing every day. Most of the motives that encourage our students were put on hold. I know that high schoolers have an academic counselor that helps them with the academic aspects. I know that many schools have psychologists that usually focus on special students or at-risk students. But what happens to the rest? Who is going to help the rest? The other aspect will be technology. I live in the Central Valley, and as you know, we are one of the most marginalized areas when it comes to advances in technology for low-income families. Our families must have access to affordable and reliable internet access and adequate equipment. I am at work, and then here I hear about all the challenges that my kids are facing at home. How they're having difficulties connecting to class. Our internet is not strong enough to support all 3 of them at once. Yeah, our school provided MiFi, but they do not reach the area where I live. So my son is using our cell phone's hotspot. But what happens to the families that cannot afford that when the My-5 does not reach and they don't have another option? The next option will be satellite internet, but that is super expensive in our area. So I think that's something that we need to work and we need to do is providing this internet access that it's affordable for all families. Yeah, our school provided Chromebooks for all the high schools. Other schools provided tablets, and the lower grades, they received paperwork. But some of these equipments, they cannot support the platforms that they're using. For example, when they're doing Zoom classes, they have to turn the camera off to be able to have a better connection. Or they cannot have multiple screens or multiple works that they're doing in order to be able to listen more appropriately to the class. The question for me as a parent will have been how families are doing with technology. How familiar is the family when it comes to the technology aspect? How are they going to be able to help the student? How can we work together to help our students? In my work as a community liaison, I see many cases where families are struggling because of the language barrier. Even if the information is given in their home language, there are new concepts that students and parents do not understand. And they don't know how to utilize this technology through distance learning. Our students and parents need to be prepared. We need to aim for a cooperative team among parents and schools. I think that the same way that the teachers were given a training on how to utilize the tools for distance learning, parents need to be part of this tool, and our students as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rosaura, very much. So we have a couple of minutes left, and I just wanted to ask, so what ways would it make it possible to discuss your needs as you work with families and parents in your position? But what would be some ways to make it possible to discuss your needs with district and school site leadership?
But it's a very challenging question because sometimes we try to reach our parents through Parent Square, but most of our, especially our ELD families, they don't have access to technology. They don't have an email address, or they don't have the equipment to access Parent Square. So how are they going to know about the information that is being provided? For example, a questionnaire went out today about asking parents if they're considering the option of sending their kids back to school when they were allowed to open. But what's going to happen with the parents that don't have email addresses, or that they don't have access to our Parent Square? So that's where we're making a lot of calls. They're doing advertisement, but this is a really challenging time for all of us.
Thank you. How about Nitsa? What are the ways to make it possible to discuss your needs in terms of really communicating with your district and school site leadership? We have a couple more minutes, so would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I have, my daughter is in Golden Valley. It's sometimes really challenging to communicate with high school since the kids are more independent. For me, it's very easy to communicate with the elementary school because, you have to be there all the time, but kids in high school, it's really hard for parents sometimes to communicate. I think Ms. Rosaura is right. There has to be something. I mentioned technology. She mentioned technology. Parents need more backup to learn how to use this platform, because I was lost the first weeks and I finally learned. But some of them are still struggling because they have a language barrier. They don't understand. They don't have a phone or don't have an email address. They don't know what's going on with school. So yes, I agree with Ms. Rosaura.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for joining us and giving us your insight and your experiences as you both as parents, but also in working with families as well. So we're going to go on to the next piece.
And I know Patty has a schedule she needs to keep. I will at 4:30 read off.
Thank you again to our parents and their insight and experiences that contribute to our better understanding of what families and parents need from us. We will be going into the first of 2 breakout rooms. We encourage you to join. It is an opportunity to hear and share your thoughts around this topic. Don't leave us. There are 2 other great presentations coming. We ask that one person from the group write in the chat when you return to the main room 1 to 2 key responses from your discussion. The group facilitator can be the person whose name is the closest to the Y in the alphabet, or you can choose your own facilitator. But keep in mind to keep the focus on the prompt questions. Ensure that everyone has the opportunity to share or ask a question. There will be Google Slide with prompts and questions. Choose a facilitator or go with the person that's closest to the Y in the alphabet, a screen person who can share their screen, and note taker. And again, be sure to assign a representative to share out 1 to 2 key responses to the whole group in the chat box. So you'll have 10 minutes to share, to be out in the breakout rooms. And there's 2 prompts that we would like you to focus on. What particular resonates with you from the experiences derived messages regarding homeschool partnerships? And what key messages did you hear from the parents as a district or school site administrator or teacher lead? We know we have some teacher leads here as well this afternoon. So please please join a breakout room, enjoy, network, get to meet your colleagues from across the state, and we'll see you in a bit. So welcome back. And as you return, can your representative from your group share out and write in the chat 1 to 2 key responses that you discussed in the chat room? So let's go on to our districts, our school districts. We're ready to have an opportunity to hear from our 2 districts on how they are responding in the new school year to homeschool partnerships, the how and why, and how they're supporting their school site and district leadership in return supports district leadership to support homeschool connections. The first district that we're going to have presenting is Mountain View School District in Monte, California. We have Raymond Andre, Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, and Priscilla Figueroa, Director, Family Engagement, Extended Learning, and Migrant Education. Our second school district will be Oxnard School District with Marlene Batista, Director of English Learner Services, and Alberto Mendoza, the Parent Support Liaison. So I'm going to turn it over to Mountain View School District.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us. On behalf of our Superintendent, Lillian Maldonado French, and our Board of Education, we're very happy to be here. On a personal note, I'm very happy to see our parents here. My mother volunteered nearly every day in my school when I was growing up, even in high school. And honestly, I credit my mother especially for what I've achieved. So you have a huge impact on your children, and they will greatly appreciate it one day. We can do one more. So Mountain View School District sits in Los Angeles County, outside of downtown Los Angeles, about 13 miles. And we're a K-8 district. One of our highlights is that we have transitional kindergarten classes in all of our elementary schools. We have a full day Head Start program, a state preschool program, and we also are transitioning somewhat to a K-8 model for some of our schools, which is new to us in the last few years. We have we have a population who has great need. And one of the great things about our district is that we also see great need as great promise. So as you see, we have a 95% unduplicated supplemental concentration LCAP rate. About 53% of our students are English learners, and nearly 90% are low income. We have 17% of our students who are identified as experiencing homelessness, and 54 identified foster youth students. However, we have a very high number of students who are in kinship programs or living with grandparents or aunts and uncles in our district. So prior to the pandemic, one of the things we've been very fortunate to have is that our superintendent and our Board of Education has very clear goals for English learners. We've partnered with the Sobrago Foundation and the SEAL Foundation, and we have a very robust English learner program in our district. But we also have a history of goals and actionable objectives for family engagement. And this really started around 2009 when our superintendent focused the training for that year on family engagement and how are we going to connect more with families. Our data management systems were aligned to be more interactive and more communicative for our families. But we also went through a process of looking at our district plans, and we started partnership action team plans in our district. So every district plan, whether a school site or district level, had to have a parent connection component. And from that, we began training parents, which you'll hear more later on in the presentation, to be parent trainers who provide workshops to our families to help build that connection and that communication piece with them. So we started in 2009 with Joyce Epstein's work and Keys for Family and Parent Engagement. And we were really working through how do we align, building that connection from learning and what was happening in our classrooms in the schools, and asking parents to engage with learning with their children, not the traditional volunteer or you guys say sometimes like the potluck activities that were a little more prevalent back then. And then the California Family Engagement Framework came out. And we really started building systems around the Family Engagement Framework from the state of California. And at the same time, we joined the Johns Hopkins partnership, and we started looking at Karen's MAPS work. What we found is that rather than engaging in just one of the frameworks, we included a new position in our district, which was our Director of Family Engagement. And that position really started working to develop a Mountain View action plan for families that included the work of all those I've just described. So that work really focused on our Board of Education goals, and we focused on being asset-oriented in our mindset, looking at the rigor and relevance of parent and family engagement, and trying to build relationships with our families. So as I mentioned, we revised our family engagement framework. Our focus on learning plans were very intentional every year. We look at our academic goals, and we look at how do we make families partners in our district. Not just giving them information, but how can we elicit them to support us and how do we support them. So at each of our school sites, our administrators, and we have community liaisons at all of our school sites, began working with parent teams. And these teams were advisory and participants in developing activities and programs and plans of how they were going to engage in their school's work with their children and for all the children in the school. As we also began to transition, and we started looking at other positions in our district. If we really truly wanted to engage our families, it couldn't have just be our community liaisons and our administrators. So we began to look at like a library techs, and we increased their position, their hours, but it was very intentional. We decided to increase their hours for family engagement activities. And one of the needs we were identifying as an area in LA County that had a high obesity rate in children. So we started doing nutrition workshops after school so that our families could come in and engage with libraries because there's no library in our district. We also started a family biliteracy project where it wasn't just training parents who came to trainings. We had family workshops where mom and dad or grandmother and the children came in, and we focused on books that were biliterate, whether it was English, Spanish, Vietnamese, English, and we hired TOSAs. We had academic TOSAs, but in addition to our Director of Family Engagement, we hired one TOSA to focus purely on parent involvement and to begin working with parents, providing trainings, working with them to figure out what their needs were. At the same time, we implemented our family biliteracy project for kindergarten through 3rd grade. And the goal was to build literacy in the home, but to respect and honor the literacy of their home language and capitalize on that so that they could connect more with our school sites. We also have a migrant education program where we extended a few years later because our migrant education families who had participated in the biliteracy program really saw a disconnect as their children were becoming older and starting to not want to engage with their primary language or their home language. And they were feeling insecure about using it. So we've implemented that program to really respect and honor the traditions, the values, the language in each of our families' homes. And something we are most proud of, and as you see, we shamelessly put a golden bell there because we won recognized by the California School Board Association for our work last year. But we developed parent trainers. And as I mentioned before, these parents go to all of our schools. There's a cadre, and they present a series of workshops for families. And what we found is because it's coming from our parents, and they're the ones who spearhead and lead and develop and plan these workshops, we've had a lot more attendance in workshops, and it's been more meaningful. They're not afraid to ask another parent or family member of the community questions that they might be hesitant to ask us as a school district. Now I'm going to turn it over to Priscilla.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we were going very strong, just as Raymond Andre was discussing. We were going very strong, riding very high on our Golden Bell win. And we all came to a screeching halt with most of the nation in March. And we realized when we had to send kids home on that Friday, on the turn of a dime, that we really needed to have an initial response to the needs of our families. So when we first started, very quickly, we came together and we knew we had to respond to basic needs such as meals, really continuing to provide an access to community resources. We realized that though we were a one-to-one district, we were not students were not taking devices home. So the access to devices really was concentrated at the schools and was not necessarily being translated into the home. So we knew we also had to provide access to the devices, which also meant access to internet and connectivity. And we also realized communication. We had a strong communication system going on within the schools, but then we realized once we had to go, there was no longer that connection with parents coming to the school and things like that. We realized that we really needed to look at our communication systems. So we quickly had to evaluate what did we already have in place, how could we build upon it, and then how could we begin to optimize our system effectiveness. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So we really have looked at and focused on 4 areas. So if you look at this slide, there's several things on there, but I'm just going to talk to certain points. And I'm going to start at the bottom of the slide with wellness. With our grab and go meals, we noticed that we did have to continue to provide the basic need. You saw our makeup of our community really called for an immediate need to provide and continue to provide meals to our students. So we moved to a grab and go meal type system. And we had that going on daily, whereas parents were coming to pick up both a breakfast and a lunch. And that quickly moved upon parent request. It moved to an every Monday situation because parents were saying they did not want to have to come out or delay instruction, students being able to participate in instruction because they had to be waiting in line to get their lunch, to get their breakfast and lunch. So we moved to an every Monday distribution, and we continue with that where families will receive both breakfast and lunch for a 5-day period. We were happy to have partnerships in our community, and we were able to open up a food bank which worked out of our family center 3 days a week, providing meals, providing food distribution to the community in a drive-through type setting. And then with other areas of wellness, we've had our counselors in the district came up with a calming room, a virtual calming room that they have presented to parents and have trained parents. So also providing different resources to parents on how to deal with anxiety and things when students may need some additional support. And then also looking at our physical education, as Ray had said earlier, we were in the process of wellness has always been a stronghold in our district. And so we continue to look at how can we continue to provide access. So we had things like physical education videos. Our PE teachers stepped up immediately and provided videos that students can access so they can continue physical education in the home. Now, moving on to areas of access. We knew we immediately got devices out to students so that they can continue with their learning. And then in terms of connectivity, we were very happy that we had partnerships already established within the community that was able to provide an immediate access to 1,000 hotspots that we were able to provide our families. Also understanding that our families not only had issues with connectivity, but many had issues with access to technology, just understanding how to connect, how to conduct a Zoom, how to be part of a Zoom session, things like that. So we have now provided, set up technology support centers at several of our sites where parents can make an appointment and meet with some of our site tech support technicians to help them work through connectivity issues. We've also done a lot of training with our community liaisons, our site library techs, office personnel. Basically, everyone is on board and knows that one of their main jobs is to help parents access and help parents have connectivity. So we have all these positions now where everyone knows that they have been trained and their main point is to help families continue with access. We've also had our library site techs conduct library read alouds so as to continue to provide students with access to rich literature and stories that they can access at any time. When it came to communication, we did know that our communication system kind of had a little hiccup, and we realized that we really needed to reach out and see how we can get communication to all families. Like we heard the parents say before, many times a flyer would go home with the student and it never came out of the backpack if it made it into the backpack at all. However, we also realized that we needed to provide instant access to all the resources and information. So we started an e-newsletter, which I will share a sample with you shortly, that goes out to all parents through email. Now, moving on to email, we realized that that was going to be a big issue. We had already started a parent portal, and we knew that parents were slow on coming on because of not having emails, not accessing emails. So we kind of started an email drive. In order to receive the device, community liaisons were on the phone immediately with parents, helping them connect to their emails. If they did not have emails, the liaisons walked them through establishing an email. And we have now become very purposeful in having parents continuously connect to their emails. And if they are not connecting, we are reaching out by phone to make sure that that connectivity is continuously there. We've also continued with our parent leadership training. And one of the major things we did was, in order to continue with our ELAC, our DLACs, our migrant eds, even in March and April, we conducted Zoom training sessions for the parents so that we showed them how to access Zoom, how to maneuver through Zoom so that they can continue to participate in these advisory councils. And then with our leadership team, our parent trainings, they have continued and they are now continuing to, they have become Zoom experts and have taken several sessions on how to present virtually. And they have been able to continue with our training sessions. So we are very proud of them. On the next slide, so we can finish up. So here's an example of our e-newsletter. You can connect to actually get a copy of it. And we don't have time, but you can see some of our videos of our PE teachers who so graciously went online and did their thing through YouTube. And the next slide, please. And even our parent leaders, they have been so strong. They went from training other parents on things like Maslow's hierarchy in person to really moving into virtual instruction for themselves, and have now even moved into being very strong and willing to do videos where they are recruiting parents themselves. We had several parents who actually created a recruitment video for our next Parent Academies, which will be starting this upcoming Monday. And this is one of the ways that we have really been able to engage many parents. We found that working through the parents really provides another bridge to allow more parents to participate in leadership roles. And we are very proud to say, if we can go to the next slide, that is one of our key areas that we really feel to highlight. If teaching students through this pandemic era would not be possible without parents, and we are so proud to say that we have parent leadership already in place, and they continue to bring in other parents so that they can continue to keep the learning going. So that is one of our true highlights in how we were able to build those strong relationships to provide instruction during the pandemic era.
Thank you, Mountain View School District, for sharing your work with building strong family and homeschool connections. Thank you. So we'll continue with our presentation. But before we do that, we wanted to give you, go on to the next slide, please, a couple of minutes to reflect on what Mountain View School District shared, what resonated with you. So write down some notes for yourself, refer to the reflection tool that we share with you today. It take about 2 minutes to do that while we transition to the next school district, which is Oxnard School District. And again, thank you, Mountain View School District, for sharing with us your experiences and expertise with homeschool connections and parents, and the things that you pivoted in your approach to building those family and school relationships. Next, we will have Oxnard School District present. We have Dr. Marlene Batista, Director of English Learner Services, and her parent liaison, Alberto Mendoza, Parent Community Liaison. Marlene?
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us here. We're so excited to share with you. Mountain View has a lot of wonderful things happening and a lot of similarities with our district. So we are from Oxnard School District. As you can see, this was 2 years ago when the fires hit, and you can see a lot of our families and our parents working out in the fields despite the air quality. And that's kind of what the resiliency of the families that we serve in Oxnard School District. So Oxnard is located in Ventura County. It's about 50 miles west of Los Angeles. And the city itself is about 73% Latino, with 60% of the families speaking Spanish. The district itself, we're an elementary school district where actually we do preschool through 8th grade as well. We have about a little over 16,000 students. 10 of our schools are K-5. 7 of our schools are K-8s, and we have 3 full intermediate schools. Of the schools, we have 10 schools that are dual language programs. They are rolling up to be full dual language schools. So at this point in time, when families come to enroll in our school district, they have a choice between 2 schools depending on where they live. They can ask to be in a dual language school, or if they so choose, they can go into a sheltered English immersion program or an English school, whichever one they desire. So we give our families options in our school district. We believe because of the population we have a lot of emerging bilinguals, and we want to make sure that we're building up as many of our students to be fully biliterate and bilingual when they leave our schools. Our families are 97% Latino, with 44% of our students being English learners, and about 87% of them from low SES households. We also have a growing homeless population. We're up to about 800 students at this point. And with this pandemic, we've seen that it's grown. We didn't have as many previously. So we're definitely seeing the repercussions of this pandemic. For our demographic data, you can see that we have quite a bit, like I said, of English learners. A large percentage of our students come into our school district being English learners and then reclassify. So we have our what we call our ever ELs is the largest portion of our school district. You can also see that 94% of our families speak Spanish, but we do have 4% of our families who are speaking Mixteco. That's about 400 families in our school district that speak this indigenous language from Mexico. And then we have a number of other languages that have kind of shown up in the last couple of years, which include Arabic, Zapoteco, Vietnamese, and Tagalog. So you can see we have a lot of diversity, and because of this Mixteco population and these other languages, what we've done is we have a large number of bilingual staff at all of our school sites to ensure that our families have somebody to communicate with. All of our outreach specialists at our schools are bilingual. We have 2 Mixteco translators that are actually full-time employees in my department, and they're there to support our Mixteco families, to make phone calls, and to be accessible to all of our schools when they need translation. We also contract with outside companies for the other languages that we don't have, so that through Zoom, through phone calls, and in the past we used to do, in person, we could have other languages spoken when families needed those supports for our families. With a great district comes great leadership. And when I first started, I was hired by Dr. Cesar Morales, who is now with our Ventura County Office of Education. Dr. Morales hired me to really bring together our family programs. We were having a really difficult time with our English learner families and community, and it was really imperative to him to create that relationship and to build that collaboration and to start empowering and engaging our families in a positive way. And thanks to his leadership and his vision and allowing me to do the work, I hired Alberto Mendoza as my family community liaison, and we started the hard work. I've been there for 3.5 years. Alberto's been there for 3 years, and in that time, we've made a 180-degree turn on where we are with our families, to the point where last year, when we applied for the community engagement initiative with the state, we actually were chosen one of 6 districts to be part of this, spearheading, initiative in family engagement and community engagement. So we're really proud that we came from a place where we were nowhere near being able to be in that group, and now we're part of that starting group that is trying to make a change in family engagement across the state. Then we were fortunate enough to have Dr. Aguilera Fort, our new superintendent, come in last year, and he has continued this hard work with us. He is an active believer in family and parent engagement and in bringing our community into with us. So we are so lucky that we were followed by another wonderful leader. So I always thank both of them for their leadership. Within the leadership, we have 2 large areas that really focus on our parent engagement. The first one is our Pupil Services Department. And under our Pupil Services Department, we have a district liaison who mostly focuses on our homeless and foster youth. His goal is to identify the families when they come into the enrollment center and to work with our outreach specialist at each of the sites in order to support and maintain them. We call our outreach specialist ORCs. They're pretty much what a parent liaison would be called if if we were talking in other districts. Then you have the English Learner Services Department, which is my department in Ed Services. And I have the Community Family Liaison, which is Alberto. And Alberto's main job is really to work with parents, specifically our DLAC parents, our English learner families, and working with PAC with our Superintendent's Advisory Council. He also does all of our parent leadership work and working with our group, our Project to Inspire, which is our leadership classes that we do with our parents, which we'll talk a little bit later. So during this pandemic, how have we been keeping our parents in the loop? How have we maintained them so that we can support them in the best way possible? The first one is through Project to Inspire, which is a program through CABE. We brought them in 3 years ago to start this program. It's a 3-tiered program where parents, when they get to tier 3, to the level 3 classes, they are trained to become facilitators. And then those facilitators go back and are able to do level 1 classes with other parents at the site levels. Prior to the pandemic, this was happening at sites. We were getting schools to sign up, getting the parents and the ORCs to get our parents there, and our parents were going and doing these wonderful classes. Now in the pandemic, we're moving to a virtual setting. We also have lots of videos on our website in both Spanish and Mixteco. Most of the Mixteco families in our school district do not read and write it, so it's all verbal. So we've had our Mixteco translators translate all of the videos that are available on our website to ensure that our Mixteco families are connected to the information that's going out for families. We're also using what we call OSD TV. It's a cable network channel that we have. That's where we have our board meetings in addition to the Zoom. We also have put up classes and lessons for our preschoolers and our younger students so that parents could turn the TV on and play it for their kids if they needed to. We use a lot of social media. We are using very, very aggressively our website. And we've also used some of our local radio stations, one called Radio Indígena, which is a radio station that targets our Mixteco families. And so we've gone ahead and worked with them to go and do messages with them. I go with my Mixteco translator. I speak in Spanish and she speaks in Mixteco, and we're able to get that message out to our families. And then our superintendent has been having webinars and Q&As whenever there's been major changes, when we were trying to decide whether we were going to open or not, whether it was going to be hybrid or distance learning. Our superintendent has taken those opportunities to have webinars in the mornings and in the evenings with our translation for Mixteco. We do them in English for one session with Spanish and Mixteco translation. We do them in Spanish in another session with English and Mixteco translation to ensure that all of our families have access to the information, and he's there to answer questions, and we keep a note of the chat box of all the questions that are being asked of us. So as we talk about Project to Inspire and we move into what our huge program has been with our parent engagement and empowerment, this was something that our parents chose as a slide for one of the presentations that we've done in the past. And I just love it. It says, naciste con la habilidad de cambiarle la vida a alguien, no lo desperdicias. And so basically you were born with the ability to change someone's life. So let's not waste it. Let's do something about it. And I believe that's the motto that our parents really have taken on as they've moved into Project to Inspire. Like I said, Project to Inspire is a 3-tiered, classes. And I'm going to have Alberto Mendoza talk a little bit more about what we've done and what we've been able to accomplish over the last 3 years in these classes.
All right, so one of the things I do want to mention as far as Project to Inspire, so these are all parents that are doing it on a volunteer basis. It is, once they finish all 3 levels, it's a little over 80 hours that they've invested in the classroom itself. And then after that, there's still all the projects and works that they have to do at home with their kids. And so it's definitely very intensive. So you know that the parents that are doing this are parents that have the heart to help other parents. They're doing this because they really want to help other parents. And so when we started with Project to Inspire at the Oxnard School District, we had about 20, 25 parents that were already pretty involved. So we went ahead and started them with level 2 and then kind of went through level 3 with them. And you can see on the slide that it's kind of just grown in these last 2.5 years. We've had 55 level 3 facilitators now, 75 level 2 graduates, 125 level 1 graduates. And we've had level 1 in 17 of our school sites out of the 20. Currently, we have we're going to have 2 level 1 virtual classes, both AM and PM, and we're going to have a level 2 class starting. We just started already. We have about 30 parents that will be attending that. And something that's great about these level 3 facilitators, we might not have them all present at all times, but we know that those 55 are ready to give classes. Those 55 are ready to help us with whatever it is that we might need. And I have called back on them to come and assist us with many things, not just with parent classes. And so right now we're gonna have about 8 parents that are gonna be giving these classes. And a lot of these parents, again, they go back to their school site and they support other parents. They've been supporting other parents digitally, especially now. So they really have grown through the Project to Inspire.
Thank you, Alberto. Yes, and these are our go-to parents, and that's the wonderful thing about being able to go ahead and do the classes and have the parents as part of it, because then when you need them for other things, they're there. They're always willing to support and help. We also found that our parents are helping other parents. We have a group of Project to Inspire parents who on their own have created their own little, it's a group called Padres Juntos. And what they're basically doing is they're providing sessions and Zoom and supports, and they have a weekly Zoom session. Every week they have a Zoom session that they give instruction to other parents, and they offer these classes to everybody in the community. And it's a nonprofit. They've looked for funding. Before COVID, they were going out to other districts in the county and doing presentations. They did a huge presentation last fall with over 80 parents who attended their presentation. So you can see that this empowerment and this engagement moves on into their own personal lives, and sometimes it even helps them find things that they can be doing in the community. Also, they're helping each other. During one of our Project to Inspire classes last spring, our facilitator, Tony Hernandez from CABE, said, this week, think about a way that you can help somebody. What's something you can do to support a neighbor? And one of our parents actually realized that one of the students in her child's class was not attending Zoom, and who was a neighbor down the street. So she saw the family at the laundromat a few days later and asked about it. And the parents explained that they leave the house at 6 in the morning, don't come home till late at night because they're working in the fields, and that they were under the impression that children were attending the Zoom. So she asked if it would be okay for her to go and wake them up and get them onto Zoom. And they said yes. And it was really great because EdSource, and I have the link here, and I'm going to copy it and put it in the chat, but in a little bit. But the wonderful thing was is that they did a whole article about her and other parents who are helping with the digital divide by supporting each other. And that's so important. And I think that's what Project to Inspire and this type of group really, really provides for our families in the community. Alberto, this is you.
Okay. So during when this whole COVID thing first started, one of the big issues, we were in the middle of one of our level 3 facilitator classes. We're maybe 6 weeks in out of the 16, 8 weeks in. And one of the biggest questions to us was, are we going to continue this? Are we going to stop? We're like, what's going to happen? Are parents going to know how to get on Zoom? Or like, do they know how to use Zoom? And of course, we decided, you know what, we got to give them a shot. And what happened, of course, it was a success. We had over 30 parents that were logging in virtually every Friday. And we were able to finish those classes. They were able to graduate. They were able to, it was just a great experience for those parents. And a lot of them were very happy because on top of being there for the class and learning, of course, was the experience of being able to share kind of what was going on with them, you know, with their distance learning at home, and just kind of giving each other, you know, advice, giving each other tips on what they can do with their kids, what was going on. So that was something that was a big plus on top of just finishing the class. It became a place where also we shared updates as far as what was going on in the district. You know, it's kind of like, oh, look, this is what's going on. So we had a place where we knew we had a group of parent leaders that they can then go and share it with other group chats, you know, other WhatsApp groups. That was one of our big things. We have WhatsApp, and that's where a lot of our parents communicate with one another. Or they go out and, you know, post it on Facebook, like, hey, you know, there's this new information. And it's definitely been, it was a great success that we like to share as far as a Project to Inspire being able to continue through Zoom. And of course, it was just, like I said, it was us not giving up or think that they weren't able to do it. You know, which, you know what, we knew they were capable, but we believed in them, and that's how we're able to finish. So then now we also, since we're starting again this new school year, we're going to have a more level 1 classes, and that's going to be starting in October. And of course, we're able to, in September, we started giving these level 3 graduates from spring. We're able to give them a couple more classes, kind of train them a little more to prepare them again for these next level 1 classes, which again are different because in the past we had them at the school site. that was one of the big things. We always had to have them at the school site. And one of our, I guess, requirements was to have 10 parents in that class in order for us to send some parents out to go do level 1. And that was one of the big reasons a few of our school sites weren't able to start that level 1, because we didn't have that 10 number requirement. So one of the things now that it's online, we're going to be able to just bring parents from anywhere within the district, from any school site. So now any parent can attend these level 1 classes, regardless if there's, you know, the 10 parent requirement in that school site. And that obviously works out a lot, because some of these school sites, there's a reason there's not 10 parents, because we don't have those parent leaders to kind of build it up. So now that we have this chance online, bringing in a couple parents from those missed school sites, it's a blessing in disguise of what it's become, you know. And we feel like we're going to bring in a lot more parents, being that it is online. And again, we're offering it AM and PM, because of course we got to remember a lot of our parents are not available during the day because they're working parents. So that's been another one of the great things. It's just been, there's been a lot of good things coming out of this, what we thought was a bad situation. So again, like I said, these level 3 parents are the ones that'll be running these level 1s virtually. There's always other parents that are going to help and assist that have already given classes before, you know, and that's kind of one of our big things. There's also this kind of mentorship that goes on through our level 3 graduates. There is parents that already finished, but they're there to kind of assist the ones that are kind of going through the classes. And we've kind of made it a thing where every new level 1 class that we have, it's a mix of, you know, different generations, we call it, of level 3 parents, you know, parents that have gone through it already, to kind of help kind of build up that confidence is what it ends up being. Because of course these parents they're parents that, some of these parents started where they couldn't even share their name or share, you know, how many kids they had, because they were that shy, they were that reserved, and they finished and they're just these amazing presenters. And that's kind of one of the things that, besides just, you know, learning and in understanding kind of what the school system has to offer in the US, that's one of the big things that they get through Project to Inspire. And it's that confidence, that leadership skills that you just don't, you don't just get them, you need to kind of practice them and learn them. And like I said, we have level 2 classes again starting this September. We actually just started them, and that's another one of the things. We're going to keep doing these classes because parents want them. You know, parents want them, and if they're on Zoom and they're there, we need to keep doing them. And that's one of the things. We can't just give up on them and kind of be like, you know what, we'll kind of pick this up once it's time. And we're going to just keep doing them.
Thank you, Alberto. So we have a lot of wraparound services. We have a very, very, very high needs community in our district. And so some of the things that we do for our sites to help our administrators is, number one, is that we have an ORC at each of our sites. And that's the family engagement person. That's the person, that's the outreach. That's the person that connects the families to the outside resources that we have in the community, the free resources, and the things that the parents might need. If a parent needs food, if they need housing, if whatever it is, medical, we have all kinds of connections. Our ORC have those connections to the community, and they're the ones that give it to our families. We also have a counselor at each site, and our counselors not only are just academic, they're also social emotional. And our counselors are doing a lot of work with our students and our families right now in the academic sense, in the social emotional sense. And so they've been providing a lot of services. We also have 3 behavioral specialists in our district for some of our families and our students who have some high needs in regards to not necessarily always in special education, but we've come across some really difficult behavioral challenges within our classrooms in the past. And so we have 3 of them. We also have the district liaison or foster homeless liaison. That's not Alberto, that's another liaison, and he works specifically with our foster and homeless families. He runs the weekend food backpack program. So every weekend on Fridays, we make sure the kids would go home with backpacks with food, because we're doing the food that goes home every day now. We're not necessarily doing the food backpack right now, but we will reinstate it once the kids come back to school. And we do offer free breakfast and lunch for all of our students in our district. Our ORCs and counselors are also providing social emotional support for our students and families. They do parent and student support meetings. They're part of the SST process. They're part of the any kinds of situations, regardless whether behavior or academic. The ORCs are trained to support parents in Canvas. We did start with Canvas this year. We found that last year, one of the biggest complaints our parents had was they had 5 kids and all on different platforms, depending on the school, depending on the teacher, depending on what they were, the grade level. And so now all of our students are slowly transitioning, and by December, we'll be all completely onto Canvas, which will be easier for our parents, but also it's a great communication tool for our parents to get the information from our teachers and from our district. And our RCs are trained to support them and train them. Providing meals in the mornings and evenings. One of the things that we were distributing meals, one day a week. Now we're doing it a couple of days a week. But one of the things the parents said is that we can't get there in the mornings because we work. So we have PM hours to pick up the food now for our families. And lastly, our ORCs and counselors are contacting parents regarding student attendance and academics. So they're the ones that the teachers are contacting them and saying, hey, we're having issues. These students are not showing up, and it's their job to make sure to do that. All right. How are we supporting our site administrators? We do biweekly instructional leadership team meetings, ILT meetings, so that we can touch base as an ed services department. Our superintendent can touch base with them. And we send out a weekly admin newsletter where all the information and links they're going to need is there. Our district is using mitigation funds to pay extra hours for our ORCs. We know that they need at least the 8 hours. Our ORCs are not 8-hour positions. So we're doing that for now because we know that it's needed. We provide the ELAC, DLAC training. In fact, it's coming up next week for all of our schools. We do it to support our administrators and make sure that their ELACs are trained. All of our administrators receive Zoom webinar accounts so that they can have larger meetings. We have adopted Canvas, like I said before. We have scheduled tech support at sites. So we have a tech team that goes out and they have appointment times, but also they're at certain sites, certain days to make sure our families have the support. We've upgraded our tech and equipment at all the sites for our teachers, for our families, for our staff. We get support from our community family liaisons. Alberto's there to support them in any questions they may have regarding Parent Project to Inspire, regarding ELAC, regarding anything regarding to parent. And we are a one-to-one device, preschool to 8th grade now. That was something we did this year. We were 2nd through 8th grade last year, and we added the other grade levels, and we bought over 3,500 hotspots to make sure all of our families are connected. Some of our on-site parent committees, ELAC, School Site Council, PTA, Project to Inspire, all are happening virtually, and all of them are getting successful attendance. We had a DLAC meeting last week. We had 33 parents who showed up. When we had them live, maybe it was a little bit less. So basically, our belief is that this is a partnership. We have to work together with our school sites as a district there to make sure that our administrators and our sites have everything they need in order to be able to support their families and their students. Because we know that the only way that we're going to get student success is through those partnerships. It's hard work, but it's not hard work, it's heart work. And we're really proud to be doing that in Oxnard. Thank you.
Thank you, Oxnard School District, Dr. Marlene Batista and Alberto Mendoza. As you know, both Mountain View School District and Oxnard School District share how they built upon and pivoted their approach to homeschool partnerships in response to distance learning. We want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. We know that the time is getting near. And as we close today and reflect on the key messages that we heard from research and lessons learned, our 2 parent leaders, Rosara Murataya and Itza Pagan, in our 2 school districts. And as we continue to develop and refine our approach to supporting families and needing strong homeschool partnerships, we need to be grounded in and committed to using the research and guiding principles of the EL roadmap. Please take a moment to share with us as we close in the chat box, what is one key action you will take to support families and need strong family support and homeschool partnerships? We want to thank you for joining and taking the time to be with us today. We hope that you found this time helpful and also giving you some ideas on how to continue to build upon your work with your students and families. Please make sure you signed in today to receive copies of the PowerPoint recording and resources. And again, before you leave us this afternoon, we want to thank you for joining us. We know you have many choices for webinars lately, and we hope that you found this webinar something that you will be using towards the work that you will be doing with your families in building strong homeschool partnerships. If you would like to have more information regarding our upcoming professional learning opportunities, please contact myself, Margarita Gonzalez Amador, Project Administrator, or Victoria Wise, our Project Specialist. And again, we want to thank you for being with us, and our parents and our 2 districts and everyone that was here today. Thank you for making this an awesome webinar and to close our cycle of our fall webinar series for administrators. Have a great evening.